Hey everyone, welcome to our video today, which is all about how to navigate a career with a life-changing illness. And today we're joined by Tiffany Dyba, a career coach and someone who's actually lived through a life-changing illness. So Tiffany, tell us a little bit about you and your background and your own experience.
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Lauren. So my background has been historically in recruiting. So for about 15 years, I started in the agency world and then kind of moved in-house and moved to New York in 2011 and really started to get my footprint in the luxury retail space. So most notably, I was in recruitment for Tiffany & Company and then led the recruitment team at Burberry for 5 years before transitioning into a career coaching and consulting business that I have owned and operated since the end of 2017. I'm also a mentor here with Career Contessa, so really excited. But of course, 6 months after I launched my business, I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. So certainly I'm excited to kind of share a little bit about how doable it is to really work through a life-changing illness and make it work for you as well.
Hi Contessas, I'm Lauren McGoodwin, founder and CEO of Career Contessa, the only career site built for women. Be sure to like and subscribe to our videos because we drop new ones weekly. Okay, now we're gonna go over the 5 tips that Tiffany created for us on how to navigate a life-changing illness with your career. Tip number 1, transparency. Okay, let's start with tip number 1, which you said is transparency.
Yeah, so I think it's important to be very transparent with your employer and specifically your line manager, your boss, to make sure that you're really upfront about how you're feeling about your illness so that there's that communication and that dialogue happening so that everyone's kind of on the same page. If time off needs to be taken, if you're not feeling well and you can't come in that morning, it's just good to have that really open communication. And maybe with a few kind of people you trust at work as well. Maybe it's a coworker, a colleague, or someone else just to kind of have that network and that support system of people you trust.
Yeah, I think transparency is a pretty good policy all the way around because also people, if they don't know, they can't help. And I think naturally people want to help, whether that's that you're going for a doctor appointment for a few hours and they want to cover for you, or they just want to be able to give you the support that you need emotionally. So transparency, always good.
Always good.
Tip number 2, honesty. Okay, so tip number 2 is to be honest.
Yes, it's important, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the transparency piece. I think they're both, very similar, but I think when I say honesty, what I think is really important is, really being honest with yourself first. So if you're not feeling well that day, if you're, feeling like maybe you're running behind on a project or a deadline, it's really important to be honest with yourself as well as the team working with you, and again, your line manager, to say, hey, I'm actually really not feeling well today. I might need to hand this project off to someone else, or I might need a few extra days.
I really like the tip about being honest with yourself because I imagine that a lot of people would probably want to just push through it and not be sick. I mean, we already have this thing about taking sick days, but especially if you're dealing with a life-changing illness, like you need to be honest with yourself and take care of yourself first.
Absolutely. You'll only be better at your job if you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tip number 3, reflect.
Yeah, so I think reflection is really important. So let's say you're in a really high pressure, high stressful job, you manage a big team, you travel a lot. What worked for you before your illness may not work for you now. So it's important to take stock of that and again, go back to honesty. Is this a job? Is this a career that's really going to bring out the best self and really support you physically and mentally?
Yeah, I think also with reflection is understanding that maybe reflect how it's going to affect the people around you, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
You're right. Like if I'm leading this big team and I don't want to let that up because I don't want to change my routine when so much else is maybe changing for you physically, maybe you need to reflect and say, yes, but that's actually not the most important thing right now. Or that's actually something I can let go of and rely on this other person. So just taking the time to sit and think about that.
Exactly.
Tip number 4, understand your company's policies around leave and FMLA.
So I think this one is pretty self-explanatory and goes without saying that it's important to understand your rights. It's important to understand these policies. So again, it will be really important to link up with HR and really have them understand a bit about where you're coming from and sort of the time that you may need to take, and they can share those policies with you so you're on the same page, you know what time you're owed, and what's acceptable, and so that way you're very educated and can make the best decisions for you.
Is it ever a situation where, okay, you've been diagnosed with breast cancer and you don't get time off, or I guess, could you be working for a company where they say, no, you have to come in?
I mean, that's not legal.
That's
not legal.
All right.
But that's another conversation.
Yeah. Okay, good. Number 5, be in constant communication with your doctor. All right, so number 5 is be in constant communication with your doctor. Tell us a little bit about that.
So again, that's important too, because while you're being transparent with everybody at work, it's important to let your doctor know sort of how you are proceeding with kind of your regular life outside of taking care of yourself, treatments, medications, because your doctor may have opinions on this and recommendations for, well, maybe you shouldn't, go on that trip to London because, your white blood cell count is low. And I'm just using an extreme example here, but it's important to let your doctor know what you're up to so that they can make recommendations, again, to support you physically and mentally.
Yeah, over communication is not a bad thing here.
No, not here. Not here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tiffany, and sharing these tips. Where can people find you, learn more information about your services, and working with you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's pretty easy to find. It's tiffanydyba.com, DYBA. And I have actually 2 Instagrams. One is specifically for business and personal, and that's at Tiffany Dyba. But I also have an Instagram dedicated to building community and awareness around breast cancer and just really supporting other women who have been diagnosed specifically at a younger age. And that's actually C-Dream, at C-Dream.
Great. We're going to put all of those in the description below, so go ahead and head there to grab those Instagram handles and website. So Tiffany and I would love to know if you've experienced a life-changing illness or if you are currently going through one, what tips have worked for you? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one of them.